And what that means is it could be all over without Manchester City having to kick a ball. If Arsenal lose at Nottingham Forest, the title is City's on Saturday. If Arsenal draw, it's effectively over because of Manchester City's far superior goal difference. If Arsenal draw and Manchester City avoid defeat against Chelsea on Sunday, City will win the title. If Arsenal win and Manchester City beat Chelsea, it is Manchester City's title. There are loads of ways that Manchester City can win the title this weekend. It is on the cards for them. It is imminent for Manchester City. All they have to do to make absolutely sure, without even relying on Arsenal, is to win their game against Chelsea on Sunday. It's looking bleak.
It's just the way, even that intro there, everything with that intro just went straight back to Man City. Man City if Man City turn up, it's going to be City's. Everything's Man City, and the way we've finished the season, unfortunately, they've got themselves in a situation where, they've just arrived at the right time, Kels. It's a very, very tough team to try and hold off. And it literally, in the end, the pressure was too much for the boys. They were physically and mentally done, but it was a great effort. But they're a magnificent team. I thought that they were going to get a lot more problems from Everton, especially off of Everton's game against Brighton. But they went there, 4 changes, and still just steamrolled them.
Before we speak to Darren and Natalie, because Darren Bent and Natalie Gedra are here with us. Before we get to them, though, I need to ask you the big social media question. Have Arsenal bottled it?
No, we haven't bottled it. If we bottled it, we'd probably lose that game against Newcastle the other day. Even though Newcastle started brilliantly well. I don't think they've bottled anything this season. They've played well because they were in good form and they were playing well. They were beating teams. They stayed in games. We saw against Villa. We saw against Bournemouth. We saw games where they came back. They didn't bottle it. In the end, I think that it's just the bridge too far with the injuries. Saliba's injury was a massive one for us. We couldn't take that hit. We took the Jesus hit. We've taken Partey hit. We've taken a hit with all the other guys. But Saliba, we couldn't take that hit. And so when people are saying about bottling it, it's just an easy thing for them to have a go at the boys. But in the end, we just didn't have enough depth and for me, experience to see that off. And those 3 draws, for me, kind of confirms that to me.
Even if they didn't bottle it, Arsenal did run out of steam in the latter stages of the season. Can that be a product of being breathed on quite so heavily by Manchester City for large parts of that? And just the pressure, maybe not getting to them to the point that they bottle it, but getting to them in the fact that it does take an emotional and physical toll.
Of course, because you're talking about one of the best teams we've seen for a long time in the Premier League. I mean, they can win game upon game, and also as well, they've been there so many times before. We saw Liverpool try and hold them off and then claw back the points and ultimately beat Liverpool. So what Arsenal have done this season has been fantastic, but they're just not used to being in this type of scenario, not for a long, long time, and certainly not with a team like Manchester City chasing you down. But as Wrighty was saying there, when you look at some of the injuries as well, and even the injury to Tomiyasu, people don't even talk about that one because there was a time where Rob Holding was struggling and it almost looked like if Tomiyasu had been fit, maybe he would have played at centre-half or put Ben White at centre-half and played him right back. So all these little things have maybe gone against Arsenal, but still, you're talking about a team that you have to get to 90 points. If you don't get to 90 points, you've got no chance of beating this Manchester City side. And Arsenal are relatively young when it comes into this type of experience in a title race. But I think next season they'll be better for it. But of course, when you're in a position where you've been so close for so long and it's on the end of Arsenal fans' lips, can they win the title? And when it's snatched away from you at Manchester City, it's hard to take. But at the end, if you look at it as a whole, it's still been a fantastic season for Arsenal. I mean, no one at the start of the season had Arsenal anywhere near the title. And the fact they've pushed one of the greatest teams in Premier League history right to the very end, they deserve a lot of credit.
So Arsenal can potentially get to 87 points, which won't be enough if Manchester City, as expected, are able to get that win that they need on Sunday. There was a point in the season that, as you've both referred to, where Arsenal fans were feeling relatively confident while still aware of the threat of Manchester City because they built up a cushion. It felt like they'd done everything right to give themselves that breathing space come this point of the season.
And they were feeling confident, rightly so, because the problem is it's Man City. The margins are... Do you remember 18-19? Liverpool lost 1 match and they didn't win it. 1 match. Last season, Liverpool lost 2 matches and they didn't win the league. The margins are very, very slim. And if you're fighting against Man City, you just need to show a lot until the end. They're pushing the limits to the very end. And Man City, they know how to be chasers, and they know how to put that pressure, and they know how to behave and to feed from that energy of being the chasers. And when they go on top of the league, and they know how to behave when they're there. So they have all this experience, all this knowledge that makes all the difference. But after the match against Brighton, I was very encouraged with Mikel Arteta saying, okay, we can't play second half like that, because it's a starting point from Arsenal. You know, they know that the margins are very slim, and they know where they need to work. So transfer window, mentality-wise, they showed a lot of strength throughout the season. But what happened against Brighton, you know, there are some aspects that they can look at without people going like, oh, they bottled it. It's not that, you know, it's just aspects of a team that built something extraordinary, very significant throughout the season, and they have to keep building. They will keep building. They're not one-season wonders, you know. They will grow from that. Yeah. But then these next few steps are going to be very interesting.
This is the thing, Kels. It's the journey. They're on the journey now.
And they spent over 200 days at the top of the table.
You know what, Kels? I think that I don't know how you felt about it, Darren, when you as well, Natalie, when you saw it as well, Kels, was when the way City beat Everton. We went there thinking that it was going to be a raucous atmosphere, and they're going to go for them because of the form and that. And they beat them so comfortably. If I was in the Arsenal camp probably watching that or seeing that, you could feel that when they got to the Emirates, there was the atmosphere, there was a lull.
It was heavier than a disappointment, wasn't it?
It was because I think that a lot of Arsenal fans coming off of Everton beating Brighton so convincingly, thinking that this game, Arsenal were going to beat them, and City are going to have problems maybe with Everton, but then City beat them quite comfortably. Then we've now got to do our job, and Brighton came with bad intentions. Brighton came very organised. They caused us a lot of problems. They went direct. They got one-on-ones. Couldn't get the midfield going. The referee, for me, didn't really get hold of early challenges, and that kind of took us out of our rhythm because he didn't book people so as we can get to play properly. It suited Brighton. And then you could...
Brighton like to play properly.
Yeah, but they do play properly. Yeah. But what I was saying with the way that was, Martinelli should have been booked with that challenge. Yeah. And then Caicedo should have been booked. Then, bam, that stamps that out. Then we know where we are. But that, for me, was once that started, like the fans were waiting, the crowd were waiting for the players to give them the boost. Then what was happening is we tried to close Brighton down. Brighton were beating us, and Mitoma was causing us so much problems. You could feel the anxiety. And in the end, Kels, like I say, I just think that mentally and physically, they were just too much for us on that particular day simply because we're drained.
You talk about the importance of the injury to Saliba, and the place that has fallen in the season is in this run-in. He's missed 9 games for Arsenal. In that time, Arsenal have dropped points in 6 of those 8 games. And look, one player shouldn't really make a difference to a side that wants to chase the title. But it's coincided with, as you said, a drop in form for Partey, a drop in form for Bukayo Saka. As well, it's not just his absence. There've been drops elsewhere. Yes,
because obviously I think that him not playing out from the back to a Partey, to a Xhaka, to Erdogan, that we changed. Unfortunately for Rob Holding, didn't quite work out for him. Kivior's coming, obviously left-footed. He kind of naturally goes the other way. Saka's game is kind of like, if you look at Saka's numbers and touches, they've gone down. Partey, form dropped out and stuff like that. So his omission was massive for us. And people saying, but one player. Yes. When we lost Jesus, we took the hit. Even Erdogan, Zinchenko. Anybody else we've lost to injury, we've taken the hit. But William Saliba is too good. We haven't... The drop-off from Saliba to the net is too far. And what he brings to the team. And that is why when you look at those numbers, Kels, literally everything's half without him there. It's
even like the unit as well, because... playing next to Gabriel as well. Them two as a partnership has been incredible this season. They know exactly what each other's going to do. But even if you watch Ben White when Saliba's not there, he's not as advanced. He's almost standing next to him because Rob Holding, unfortunately, I know we're picking on him a little bit, because he's so worried about being one-to-one defending because he's got no pace. Ben White's a little bit like, well, can I go, can I not? Whereas if you look at Saliba and Gabriel, they don't mind defending 2v2, and that gives a license to the fullbacks to both go forward.
Gives license to the midfield, like Thomas Partey can try passing in areas where it's dangerous because he knows behind him he's got a defender who's probably got the pace and the skill and the know-how to stop people. So it affected Thomas's game as well.
Yeah, and Gabriel doesn't look like the same player when he's playing alongside, whether it's Kiwior or whether it's Rob Holding, than he does when he's playing alongside William Saliba.
It is hard when you have so many players rotating right by your side, and you had this connection with Saliba, and then all of a sudden, in a way, we were expecting this to happen when Gabriel Jesus got injured, Arsenal really struggling, but in a way, it was easier for them to find solutions in the final third, that it was because of the way Arsenal plays, because of the build-up, and because of the organization, because the way they are organized around this line from the build-up. So that really affected the way, as Darren was saying, Arsenal plays. And when you have that on the final third, you don't have Gabriel Jesus, but you have Trossard playing on different parts of the pitch.
Came in done pretty well.
Yes, exactly. You know? So they found solutions more easily.
It was different for us, Kel, because, you know, we look at us, we've got like 4 players, over 10 goals. So, yes, Gabriel Jesus, he scores these goals, but he does so much more for the team. But what was happening was Ødegaard's scoring, Martinelli's scoring, Saka's scoring. And so you can take the hit. But when you lose in the back, someone like Saliba, and it affects Thomas Partey, it affects Jorginho, it affects our old right side, it affects Ben White, it affects Saka. You know, it really takes away a lot from our team that we just couldn't take.
Do you know what, even Ramsdale, to be fair, because he's been that triangle, the 2 centre halves and Ramsdale, has been fantastic this season. But even when Saliba went out, you could even see Ramsdale when he's got the ball at his feet. Do I give it to Rob Holding? Do I not? And even he's unsure. And I know it's only small details, but these details are massive.
He looks more nervous than he has done at which may well be genuine nerves as well, but probably isn't helped by the fact that his familiar centre-half isn't in front of him.
Well, he's used to his 2 centre-halves splitting out and him giving him the ball, but all of a sudden, when you could sense when one of your teammates a little bit apprehensive, so he's probably looking at Rob Holding, and Rob Holding's probably giving him that, you can give me the ball, but I don't really want it in this area. Then that makes him on edge, and we saw the goal against Southampton. Ramsdale's not done that all season, but all of a sudden, because of the nerves and maybe decision making, he makes a mistake and they get punished. So I think that the knock-on effect from Saliba has been huge throughout the whole team, I think.
And in a way, maybe this is why this is one of the reasons why Jorginho fits so well as well, because he really helps organizing everything and helps communication with everyone who's at the back and everyone who's in front. So he's the passing, the pace.
And the thing with that as well, Nats, is those 3 games, the 3 draws, which you have, when we look back now, you probably say it probably cost you. I was looking for 7 points out of those games, even though we were 2-0 up against Liverpool. Before those games, like I mentioned, we was winning going in. I think we beat someone 3 and then we beat someone 4-1 or something. So you're going into the game with confidence. Then you're 2-0 up against Liverpool. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then, you know, we draw, and then we draw with West Ham, and then we draw with Southampton.
It was the 4-1 with Leeds before the start of that run, wasn't it?
Yes, that's what it was.
And even, like you said, the Liverpool result, it now looks like a poor result because it precedes that run that we can see there, and also because they were 2-0 up, that the game was there for us.
Yeah, and the thing is, Kels, all season we've been waiting for, okay, we'll see what happens when we play City at City. And we needed to go into the City game with those points. So we didn't have those points. Then you go into the City game, then they beat us pretty comfortably. It was almost like know your place, get out of here.
But again, there was that mix-up in between the defenders and the goalkeeper. There just looked like there was a disconnect in that game. But this one against Brighton, Kiwior comes in. He's the replacement in this one. And you've both, you know, as players who've got to the end of tough seasons, have said that there can be an effect where players want to do it, but they just can't. And then there's this for the Brighton goal where Kiwior, I think it's Evan Ferguson who sort of kicks his boot off the back of his foot and kicks the boot off his heel, and Kiwior drops to the ground. What's your thoughts on what's gone on there?
My thoughts were, when that happened, I thought something really bad must have happened to him, because I've never, and I said, me and Darren was speaking in the green room, never seen a defender, unless it's really drastic, not finish the job, then go down. I made reference to the fact that I remember Christian Pulisic at Stamford Bridge. I think he'd done his hamstring and made another 3 steps to try and get the ball past. that happens naturally. So when I saw Kiwior go down like that, I thought, oh my gosh, he must be really bad. So for him to get back up and play on really made me feel like, wow, I'm not sure about that. That can't happen. You have to see the job out, because when that goal went in, Kels, everybody's like, how comes that's happened? That was a bit easy. And it's because Kiwior went down. And when you look at the injury, his boot, the stud just kind of took his boot down. It didn't injure him. So you've got to see that job out, and then you put your boot on. How many times you see Gazza? I saw Gazza score a goal with his boot off. You know, so if you're not hurt, and this is why I thought he was hurt, Darren.
Yeah.
And when he wasn't, it really made me feel like I didn't like that. I didn't like what I saw there. It made me very angry, made me very sad, because for everything that they've done up to that point, for it to get to that stage and somebody's gone down because they're trying to get a foul instead of seeing the job out, was just something that I'm not used to seeing.
Just got to clear it. If he just clears
Absolutely.
it, because it would have been another extra second, and then he could fix his boot. But in that scenario, because when the goal went in, I thought, well, what's happened here? How's he got that much space in the 6-yard box? I couldn't understand it. But as Wrighty said there, when you see it, it's really poor. It's weak defending, weak mentality, that is. Because usually, you look at some of the centre-halves, not even the best defenders that we've seen in Premier League history, but you take the likes of someone like Tarkowski or anyone, they deal with the situation first, then they go down and fix their boot until that passage of play is over. But the fact you decide to do that in that scenario, I think even some of his teammates might be looking at him thinking, are you really up for the fight?
You can't help but do that. You can't help but do that because that is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
When the chips are this is the kind of situation where people would say, when the chips are down, is he going to be there? Now, I remember when we used to do, like when you used to do pre-season, Kels, and you used to have to do that hard running and that hard work twice a day. Everybody's looking to see, is he going to break? Is he going to break? Because if you break then, Kels, when it's hard and it's tough and we're all tired, but you break or you end up like saying, that's a weakness. That's a weakness.
And it happens in a split second there, and that's the decision that Kiwior makes. And suddenly, Arsenal, the air is out of their sails, and it suddenly just becomes much harder for them to try and get that response to the City result that they'd already been deflated by.
And that moment is just so different from everything else that Arsenal showed throughout the season, because mentally they were always there. Yeah. They never left the match. They were always so focused. So when you see a moment of lack of concentration, or it's a matter of mentality as well. And when we talk about mentality and talk about Arsenal's next season or next steps or next challenges, they've been recruiting well in terms of mentality, because these players, they arrive, they fit in, and they just embrace the whole project. I remember speaking to Jorginho when he arrived, and it was all about the mentality, because Arteta convinced him there with the mentality and the project. Everything's very clear for Arsenal, all the steps they need to make. And this is why I think it's going to be interesting to see what's next, what's coming next for them. Because I've spoken to Edu a few times throughout the season, Edu Gaspar, sporting director, and he has a very, very clear vision of everything, and Mikel, and they're just aligned. And they sell this to everyone who's arriving. So you can't afford to have like this little moment.
We'll come to that in just a second, because I think what happens next to Arsenal is really interesting and quite difficult to predict. So there's a couple of ways that this could pan out, but just at the end of the game, at the end of this season, that as we've all said, was Arsenal overachieving with this group of players. Mikel Arteta has them outperforming what you would expect that this squad could possibly do. They've kept pace and, in fact, led this City side that are one of the all-time Premier League greats who've set records in terms of points accrued, that have made it the norm to win the league on 90-plus points. Yeah. They've been able to do so many things so well, and there are so many Arsenal fans who are saying, this is not a poor season, this is way beyond what we ever expected, and we might not get the title at the end of it, but this has been a fantastic season. So why then, when the final whistle did go, and even before then, when the board was held up for added time at the end, was the Emirates so empty? I
know. I think a lot of Arsenal fans will look back on that, and when you just explain it about overachieving everything what we've done, I probably have to agree. We have overachieved with what we wanted to do. We wanted to finish fourth, and we finished second by the looks of things. And we played a standard of football to this point of the season, which is far beyond what we expected at the start of the season. My disappointment with seeing it so empty, Kells, was the players deserve more than that. Because once they lost that game, we saw they've gone to the end. That's as much as they can give. And when the whistle went, you could see players hunched over on the floor, kneeling down because they'd given everything. So then if I'm playing, Darren, and you can back me up as well, and I've had a season like that, and then I look into the stadium because we're losing 2-0, 3-0 against Brighton, and it's half empty, I'm probably devastated with that. That's the kind of stuff that makes you think, well, they don't bother. I'm not bothered about them. Then they're not really bothered about me, because if any season you are going to say, you know what, I know we're losing 2-0, and bam, when it gets to 3-0, I know that I want to go because for whatever reason I've got to leave. But I think I'm going to stay and give this group of players who've given us an unbelievable season. Last time we've had a season like that was, I don't know, 2004. I don't know when it was. We've got to clap them off. We've got to stand. And I'm glad that the fans that did stay did give them that, because I think
the
that
ones
team,
that were still there at the end were really vocal.
They were magnificent, and they get it. And I think that all those people who did leave, especially when I think of, I've been to South Africa, I've been to New Zealand. These people are doing anything to get across there, to tick off their number one bucket list, what they want to do, and that is go to the Emirates. People got to understand how fortunate they are to be there watching this happen this season amongst any other, and then you're going to leave in the moment when the players probably need you more than ever. It was really sad to see.
Yeah, at the end of a season like Arsenal have had, would you as a player have expected to look up into the stands and see, obviously people sometimes have to leave a couple of minutes early, but would you have expected to see as many seats empty as there were?
No, not in the type of scenario and the season that they've had, because they've given absolutely everything. Like they've pushed, as you said there, Kells, one of the greatest Premier League sides we've ever seen, right to the very, very end. And they've given absolutely everything, but they've got nothing left. Like they're fatigued mentally and physically. So you'd have got a little bit of support from your crowd and the people that are in there, and you'd want maybe a little bit of an ovation. But the fact that wasn't there, I think more so, I think some of the players would probably be a little bit hurt. I think they'd be hurting because this season the Emirates has been rocking. It's been fantastic. There were times we've seen in previous seasons where it's been a little bit toxic and it hasn't worked. This season it's been loud. Even when they've conceded goals, the fans have roared them back. Really helps. So you almost feel like when the fans are needed the most, where it's to pick the players up because it looks like the season's now slipped away and Manchester City have won it, that's when you really need them there to kind of show them that we're proud of what you've done. We know you maybe ultimately haven't got over that hill, but for what you've done and pushing this club and making us believe again, we're really proud of you. And the fact that they've almost skirted out there because we've been beat by Brighton, it almost leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth a little bit.
Yeah, there will be an opportunity to do that before the end of the season, so that there will be that moment for Arsenal fans. But what happens next season, as Natalie was saying, is going to be fascinating. I mean, you were nodding when Natalie was talking about Edu and about the
signings.
And also about the I don't want to say philosophy because it makes it sound so weak, doesn't it? I was going to say the project. What's another word that I can use? That sounds, but there is a sort of ethos at Arsenal. There is something that they can outline to people that they can buy into.
But Natalie said she spoke to Edu, and I went there. I was there like last week, and we're speaking to the mentality is in the whole of the place, from AL End, you know, the under 23, the 19s, 23s. The ladies' team, the men's team, everything is about winning. And that is why you look at Mikel yesterday and after the interview, and he said, that's not acceptable, because he's changed how he wants the players to feel when you walk through the training ground, what you want, what he expects of you right from the start. So he can't explain that performance, but I'm excited about it simply because you look at last season, when we needed to qualify for the Champions League by beating Newcastle, it didn't happen. He showed them the video this season, and we went back there and we beat them. We beat them quite comfortably in the end, even though it was quite tough. And this is the season we've constructed off of the back of that disappointment. So this is why this season and the disappointment and how close we came. I keep saying my Icarus. We kind of like Icarus. We flew quite close to the to the sun.
Your wax wings.
Yes, in my wax wings. But then why hasn't like Man City got wax wings? They're surfing on the sun. But the fact is, we can put an unbelievable season together off of the back of what we've learned from this one, and that is what I hang on to. You have to.
And we will get a chance to talk more about Manchester City, I'd imagine, next week, when it's probably going to be done. But Manchester, so you'll get a chance to talk then.
Even though you had your hand up, I still heard you.
What does this microphone do? But Darren, look at a word on City. 11 wins in a row. They can equal their own record of 14 straight wins between now and the end of the season, which is a Premier League record to the end of the season. The strength that they've shown, they've got the second leg of a Champions League final to come as well against Madrid in midweek. They're 1-1 from the first leg. They're in a FA Cup final. They're on course for a treble. They look absolutely unstoppable. You called them a juggernaut earlier on. It's been another incredible season for them. And it didn't start that way.
It didn't start that way, but when you've got a squad of players, what they've got 2 world-class players for every position. I mean, they've brought in one of the most lethal strikers we've seen in years, probably the most lethal we've seen in years. And with the players that they've got players that just know how to get it done. Like we see them season upon season. We saw Liverpool, as I said, push them all the way to get to 96 points or something, and they get pipped by Manchester City. They get players that almost thrive in this type of situation. Gundogan's probably their best player when it comes to this type of situation. I think he got 2 at the back end of last season against Villa. Kevin got 2. I just think that they're so comfortable in this position. They just wilt teams down. They just keep grinding out results. Even if they don't play well, they get results. And I think that they squeeze the life out of everyone else they're up against. And listen, they're a phenomenal team. And Pep's done well because he's turned the Premier League into the Bundesliga, it looks like. Because one team wins it every single year.
Yeah, 5 out of 6 it's going to be for Manchester City, should they complete it at the weekend or later in the season. But it does look like they are going to make it 3 Premier League titles in a row as things stand. We'll talk more about them.